Everyone. I'm Ginevra. She's Sharon. We both have personal and professional expertise in managing fibromyalgia.
Yeah, today we're talking about something that feels really relevant right now, self-care during highly stressful times, especially when you're living with fibromyalgia. Let's be honest, a lot is happening in the world right now. And even though it's not directly happening to us, we're still absorbing it. The news, social media, and constant alerts. Our phones basically keep us looped in 24/7. And while staying informed matters, we also have to ask, what is all of this doing to our nervous systems? And more specifically, what's it doing to our fibromyalgia?
And I think in fibromyalgia, we have a hypersensitive nervous system. So we need to be extra careful in how we care for ourselves.
Yeah, and as a board certified coach, one thing that I'm always talking about with folks is that the stress doesn't just live in our heads, it lives in our bodies. It ramps up the pain and fatigue and brain fog and sleep issues. All these things that we have to work at so hard to manage on a day-to-day basis. So today we're going to talk about gentle, realistic self care for times like these. And no, we're not trying to add more to your, like, what you're already doing list. We don't need you to be perfect at implementing all of these ideas. It's just, we were hoping that today's talk could be a moment for you to check in with yourself and realize that you may be having more of your fibromyalgia symptoms, or you may be feeling more stress or depression or fear. And all of those things amp up our fibromyalgia. And so that's what we're hoping to do in today's episode is just draw some attention to that and how you and I cope with it when it happens to us because it's happening to us. We
Yep.
keep talking about that with one another. So
Yep.
so I'm using as sort of a guide for our discussion. I found this back in October for World Mental Health Day. The Mental Health Foundation had a nice checklist of 6 things that you can do during these times. And the first one is setting boundaries around the news. And I can kind of get sucked down that rabbit hole where I turn on my Facebook or whatever, then you start seeing all the news there, and next thing you know, 30 minutes have gone by, and I find that I also don't feel good then, like I'm feeling more stressed or upset about things. And so for me, it really is like learning to like limit how much time I'm taking news in, whether it's on a TV or a device. I just have to really be careful and be more intentional, even if there's like crazy, extraordinary, unusual things happening. You still need to. It's good to be informed, but you have to decide for yourself, like at what point do you kind of know enough about it and you need to put it aside.
Right. The balance between being informed and, aggravating our hypersensitive nervous system. Like there's no good comes from that, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much that you can be taking in, and um it's just too much right now. I think we have to work extra hard to protect our nervous system. And for many of us too, winter alone, just this time of year can be a difficult time.
Yeah, in Michigan, you guys have been having a brutal winter. It's not been helping, I imagine, your fibromyalgia, the cold and storms and
Yeah, it has been just a lot of zero and negative days. And I know that I'm not alone. I have a lot of people who are even worse off than that. And I have some colleagues who are in different parts of the world where they really don't get the sun even as long as I do. But I still feel like I'm living with like a lot of gray, dark days. And for me, when that's happening too, like the world events then seem like so much heavier. I don't know. How
yeah,
about for you, Ginevra?
that's a really good way to say it. I think, and it sounds really silly, but like some very basic things that I try to do is just bring more light, literal light into my life. Like whether it's like a candle or, turning on more lights or one of the happy lights, because I do think just the physical darkness of winter can amplify kind of the emotional darkness that we might feel internally. Um, and sometimes, yeah, my approach is like go back to the basics.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought the sad light up. I wish I had thought about it in advance of our conversation. I would have grabbed mine to show everybody. So SAD is seasonal affective disorder. There are lights made for this purpose, and they work really well. And so I encourage everybody, if you have the ability, go out, check into these lights, and
And it
what you
only
will.
takes like 20 minutes a day. Like you don't have to do it. Is that how you use it? Or how do you
Pretty much on certain days, so I'll sit and do, my work for part of
with
the
it
day
on?
with it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for sure, what I always do, what I really recommend to folks is do it first thing in the morning because it resets your circadian rhythm. So if you're having problems with sleep, you want to be exposed to the sunlight. And if you don't have the sunlight, then the sad light first thing in the morning for a good 20 minutes. And that can really help with getting better sleep at night, too.
And there actually is good scientific data to support that. Yeah. So, um, and I actually, there's one that I like that's just called, I think, Happy Light.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That one is, and it tends to be more easily accessible. Like you can sometimes get it at like Walgreens or other drugstores, and it's usually under $100. So,
Yeah. I've definitely seen some good lights for under 100. And I think I've seen some for like $40
yeah, I
maybe.
want to say that like
Yeah.
under 50. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be super fancy or expensive, and maybe just worth a try.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even in terms of getting outside, like something too that I'm just going to add on, I'm really proud of myself. So yesterday, the sun was out and it was
Mm.
gorgeous here in Michigan.
What
And
was it like 2 degrees?
no, actually the high, I think it hit like 27 or something.
Wow,
And
downright tropical.
I know I was telling my husband, like, let's go for a walk. It's 27 out. And he's like, no thanks. And I'm like, what? When it's been 27 is warm.
Yeah, for real.
So, I threw on my warmest clothes and I went to the park. And I have to say, and I went there because I was worried about walking on unshoveled like sidewalks and stuff where it's icy. So that's also what's been scaring me off of walking a little bit outside. But the park, I had bet that being a city park, maybe it was, plowed or sidewalk area was cleaned up, and
Shoveled.
it was.
Oh, good.
And so I thought, oh, this is great. This is good for me to know because now I know a safe place that I can walk that isn't too slippery
Yeah,
and I can get outside. And it felt so good, to
that's
be outside.
awesome. Good for
So
you. I think I
thanks.
can't remember the term for it, but like the kind of Scandinavian
Yes.
countries, they recommend, because people say like, how do you get through such a dark, winter?
Yeah.
And it's literally, it's like just get outside every day, no matter how cold it is, because it does something to your brain. I mean, obviously, if it's like 10 below and it's unsafe, maybe not. But, not letting like the cold weather stop us, which often with fibro we do because, we have a low energy or if we're dealing with fatigue, like, the last thing you want to do is like push yourself to get out there. And it's like, oh, and then I have to put on 28 layers of clothes, but it really can make a big difference.
It can and it was so beautiful, it was covered in white snow and the kids were sledding down a hill and there's a
Oh,
pond and people were ice skating on it and it actually was really lovely, and I'm like this is fantastic and it's been really cold here this winter, like more so than usual for this far into winter. So it's been already feels like we've had this really long winter. So yeah, I'm really glad I did it. And clothing is everything. So there's also a saying
I
that
knew you were going to say that.
there's no bad weather. There's just wrong clothing. So I
Yep.
have the right clothing. I figured it out over the years, and it makes a world of difference. So even right down to before I would sit huddled under blankets in my house. I live in a 100-year-old house that has basically newspaper for insulation. So really 100% does in rooms. So anyways, it's cold, but I have figured out clothes that I wear that seem crazy to me like early on. Like, why am I going to wear that inside a house? But I'm like, oh, if I do, I feel better. And then
Yeah.
I'm not like trapped. Like I can only be under blankets. I can be mobile around the house doing things. So Anyways, yeah, so hoping that helps folks. Um, Getting back to our list of things, one of the other ideas there was to have phone free times because we kind of know that's leads is sort of a segue, I think, off that first point to set boundaries with the news. But even with your phone, you may find like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay attention to the news. I'm just going to scroll on Instagram or TikTok or
Right,
whatever.
right.
But before you know it, it's all like news related, and you might go on to see that cute dog that you love watching on there, or, for me, parrots. But before you know it, maybe you're catching yourself watching other things that aren't real helpful for you. So, do you ever get into traps, Ginevra, where you get sucked into scrolling, and what do you do to stop?
Absolutely. I think um, part of the challenge is I think the algorithms on social media are almost kind of designed, feels like sometimes to work against us. Like they're pulling us back into maybe more activating or stressful topics. Whereas like my nervous system really just needs to see like cats doing silly things and falling off the back of a couch and because anything else, like any kind of real world thing, I can almost feel myself like my body like tense up, but I won't notice it. I'll go off on a wormhole, rabbit hole, and then like 30 minutes later, be like, wait, what? I think I was just looking up, what the capital of Scotland is or whatever. And then suddenly I'm in, doom scrolling. So yeah, absolutely. What I've tried to do is remember to stay in touch with my body. And when I start to feel sort of the external, it's almost like I feel like the external stress I'm internalizing into my body. And I think with fibro, we have like weaker boundaries energetically almost. It's like we're heavy receivers. We're more likely to kind of allow it to come in. So I have to be like, hey, actually, like it sounds silly, but sometimes I think of like having like a little shield around me. And when I start to feel that the shield is being attacked or I am being like, scrunched in because I'm tensed or I've been like sitting in the same position, do looking on social media for too long, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably get up and like walk around. So trying to kind of have my body be give me some guidance, listen to my body.
So mindfulness around how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we can get into that time suck where we don't even realize that, oh, it feels like 5 minutes, but it's been 30.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes even just setting an alarm, if you kind of know, like maybe you keep thinking, oh, this does keep happening. Maybe set an alarm, 5 minutes and
Right.
okay,
Like I'll
I
give
got it.
myself 5 minutes to scroll on Instagram and then I'll stop and do something else. That's a good idea.
Right. Absolutely. Um, and then number three on this list was give yourself permission to rest. And I think we with fibromyalgia really need to do that because, again, of the nature of the illness, we need to often pace to have kind of more consistency throughout our day. So, balancing levels of activity with levels of rest. And rest doesn't always mean that you're taking a nap or that you're sleeping. It's just, in this case, by the Mental Health Foundation, it could be anything from sleeping or taking a nap to doing activities that you enjoy that bring this feeling of relaxation into the body. It could be knitting and crocheting. It could be baking. It could be spending time with a friend, just whatever brings on that relaxation response.
Absolutely. And I think the key piece there is giving yourself the permission to do that because sometimes we'll feel guilty, like, oh, hey, I've got a little bit of like energy. I should probably do the dishes rather than like spending that time learning to crochet. But your nervous system actually really needs that time to do something creative, do something different. But if you're sort of like ang angry at yourself or like like resentful, like literally just be like, "Hey, my nervous system has been through a lot. Really deserves to have a little bit of time." That's where I feel like the permission comes in. And I sometimes think of my stress response as like a toddler having a tantrum. Like my stress response is not going to really respond to a cognitive reasoned argument about why time is okay. Like I have to really be gentle with myself and say like, hey, no, it's okay. Like go have some playtime. You know what I mean? Then you can come back. And so playtime, rest time, because we do that with kids. We give them permission, like, okay, go recess, right? Like it's a break. Go have a break and then come back, and then hopefully you'll be ready to maybe do something else. So we do it a lot more in a structured way with kids than we do as adults, where we kind of just expect ourselves to be like doing something productive all the time.
What I think I'm hearing you saying is that you are prescribing for our listeners to take a break and to rest and do
Yes.
something.
Yes,
So if anybody
exactly.
asks you, you can say,
But the doctor told me to do it. Yeah,
that's right.
absolutely.
Um, and number four is to use a grounding exercise. You brought up the word mindfulness,
I
and
think you actually brought it up, but I
did
think I
I?
brought up the
Oh,
concept. But
okay.
yes, mindfulness.
Yeah, checking in with yourself and how are you feeling? So often we aren't even aware of how we're feeling, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I found for me that a lot of times, if I just kind of check in with myself, especially during these periods of high stress, I literally don't understand how I'm alive because I don't feel like I'm breathing at all. Like it is so
I
shallow.
know. Totally. Yep.
I'm like, oh man, I need to stop. And then I notice all the tension, my shoulders feel like they're up here and take some time to just, try to relax. And the more you can do that throughout the day, it's just really going to help you in the evening because we can't expect to go through our entire day and then be able to like really be able to sleep well at night or rest. It's so hard to calm our bodies because our bodies have been holding all that tension in and our minds when we haven't been able to like give it some breaks throughout the day. I find it makes it so much harder
Agreed.
to
So are you
do.
gonna maybe at the end you could lead us through like a grounding exercise, or do you want to do it now? Because
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I'd be happy
you
to
have
what?
one that you can teach us maybe, right?
Yeah, why don't we have anybody who's interested stick around to the end and we'll do it there. And if you're not interested, then you'll hear the rest of this.
Sounds
And
good.
because everybody has their own way of like what relaxes me and what does not. So,
Totally.
um,
Some people hear the word like mindfulness or meditation or like, nope, I know that that's not going to work for me. But
that's right.
maybe doing something where it's like combining things with movement or, turning on music or things like that. But sometimes grounding exercises or breathing exercises, particularly simple ones that are easy to do, can be so helpful, even if you're somebody like me that I haven't really found like traditional meditation super helpful, but trying to kind of get in touch with myself and speak to my body and speak the language my body understands, which is really like breathing and, you know, coming into yourself and feeling your feet on the ground. And sorry, I don't want to spoil your grounding exercise, but
No, and I'm glad you shared because I do think that couple things with fibromyalgia, we have so much going on in our minds and bodies all the time. And today we're talking about how it's right now for a lot of people feeling even more intense because not only are you dealing with the day to day, what's happening with you, you have it kind of coming in from all sides. And I really like the metaphor that I've heard where it's like you're a boat and you're on the water. And what ends up happening is you start to allow the water to come in to your boat and the boat sinks. And
hmm
so, we have a certain amount of stress and things that we're dealing with on our own boat. We don't have the capacity to let the ocean come in and sink our boat, and the ocean being kind of this other stress that we're kind of referring to today. So, and of course, it's challenging, and of course, things happen to us, right, all the time. I mean, it's life. The terrible storms happen, and you're without power. You name it. There's so many things that happen, and it's it's going to feel real hard to not let that ocean sink your boat, but that's why too, practicing all of these skills and ideas that we're sharing today, it's good to do that on a daily basis because if we kind of learn them, they'll be more of a go-to if we already kind of practice it versus when we really need them, just learning to implement them at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I like the boat metaphor. It's good.
And then number five is talk with others. Human connection is so, so powerful. There's so much science on human connection. You know, we know that social connection lowers cortisol, it calms the stress response, and
Activates the relaxation response. Yes.
absolutely supportive relationships increase oxytocin.
Yep.
It
And
reduces.
social media doesn't count for this. It
No.
has to be like actual human interaction. I mean, it can still be virtual, like it could be like a Zoom call with a friend
Yeah.
or something, but I think we sort of get like, oh yeah, well, I've got that social connection because I'm, spending 20 minutes on Facebook every day. It's like, no, to your nervous system, that's not actually, that maybe is the opposite. It's almost like worsening the social isolation.
Yeah, and there's even studies that the connection with others, that there's a co-regulation that goes on, that being
Ooh,
with somebody else, like you can actually help to co-regulate each other's, um, kind of hyper state. So that's another important
interesting.
thing.
All
Just
right.
even, even just by talking and connecting, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be about the sort of the issue at hand, if you will. It's just having that moment where you feel, connected to another person.
Or even not talking, just being in the same room and working on a knitting project to get, just both knitting, like sort of even I think the studies show that even just like silent, just company. So maybe going for a walk with somebody, if you don't feel like talking, just be like, hey, let's just walk. We don't have to talk. But that actually gives us our brain feels that as social connection.
Yeah, and there was some study, I can't remember how long it was, but they measured, and we're talking like seconds here. A hug for so many seconds, they actually saw like changes in, uh, in a scan of how I can't remember what it
Yeah,
was.
like in the
Like
nervous system
in
and your
the yeah.
cortisol response. Yeah, there's some really impressive data. And so it's kind of like going back to those basics.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing as like a kid, right? Like going back to my kid analogy, like kids really need time playing with other kids, right? Like that's an important part. We recognize that that's an important part of child development. And that doesn't stop when we become adults. And when you have an illness like fibromyalgia, it can be so isolating because you can feel like your pre-fibromyalgia friends might not understand what you're going through. So trying to find folks that kind of can meet you where you're at. Other people may be dealing with fibromyalgia or chronic illness who might understand that, like, hey, you have to reschedule that Zoom call, but you're going to get back to it because it is really important.
Yeah. And that piece about isolation, they actually consider loneliness to be more dangerous at this point, I think, than smoking. Like it was
Right.
up that high. So we know how important being with people is. And we also recognize, like you were saying, that fibromyalgia presents these challenges where it can become very isolating to have the illness. So, um,
Is this why a support group would be a very good idea? As I'm going to give your support group a plug, you should tell us a little bit, just for folks that are maybe joining us or don't know you as well. Like, uh, maybe you can tell us what offerings you have in that realm, because that's part of the essence of a support group is that you're both an education group, like learning new things, but also kind of supporting each other.
100%. Yeah. So the Fibromyalgia Association at managefibro.org has a support and education group. That's actually how our little group started some, 28 years ago. And now we have grown from a little community support group into a international support group. We have members from around the world. We meet virtually second Monday of the month. And again, you can go to managefibro.org. But I know that there's a lot of people who are very lonely with fibromyalgia, and so uh, a support group is a great way to branch out and to reach out and find human connection. And it's a small step, but if you continue to take small steps, there are other ideas that you can try to find community, like finding other types of groups or going to maybe a church service or classes are a wonderful way because often, if you, for example, go to a cooking class or something, and this doesn't have to be some expensive, um, program. It could be something that like maybe your community center is offering or something. Um,
Like learn to crochet in, 2 evenings or something. Yeah,
Yeah, you start to meet people with a similar interest, and a similar interest is a great way to bond with somebody. And you never know, what type of friendship might come out of that type of situation. Plus, it's a great, as we said earlier, it's also then going to be hitting that other point of getting some relaxation and doing something that you enjoy. So, multiple win-wins there with doing that.
agreed.
And then the last thing on their list was to focus in on what you can control, because many of us, I think, spin out of control with feeling helpless and powerless about things that are happening. And so recognizing what is in our control and what is not in our control, um, and working with that, and even trying to think of a good example here. As I do, do you have thoughts on?
I do. So, one thing I like to think about is our nervous system, particularly our autonomic nervous system, which is the part that regulates the stress response and the relaxation response. It doesn't understand what is external stress and what is internal stress. Any stress it interprets as happening to you. So I like to think this is an example back from my med school days. I remember being on the bus. This is really, I used the bus and we actually, you had to put the right amount of change in,
Oh,
fares,
yeah.
bus fares, you got on the bus. And I remember watching this woman, she was struggling, like didn't have enough money or was struggling to put it in. And I remember feeling my body like getting totally tense. And I was like, I stopped breathing until I could like see her resolve her stress. And I literally had to say to my body, like, that is not my stress. And not in like a selfish, like, I don't want to help that person, but literally in a self-protective, like, hey, if your nervous system is interpreting 100% of what it sees around it as happening to yourself, like, you're going to be in the fight or flight response all the time. And I'm talking about people that don't have fibromyalgia, like, they're struggling with that. So then you add kind of that already the imbalance we already have in fibromyalgia, where our stress response is kind of going haywire. It's just going to go like more and more and more haywire. And so sometimes those really basic things like that that is stressful, that is a really hard thing, that there are tragic things happening. Of course, every time you turn on the news, it can be really hard and sad, and but trying to at least tell your body like, okay, I'm safe. Sometimes just those basic like, I'm safe, I'm taking care of myself. That is not my stress, that kind of thing.
Yeah, excellent point there. And actually, I'm in a class right now. It's called pain reprocessing therapy. And there's a lot of really great science behind this, how it's helping people to really reduce their chronic pain. It was just in a study called the Boulder Back Pain Study, and they actually found that some folks with back pain wound up pain free after taking part in this. And even 5 years later, they were still pain-free after using this therapy.
And can
And
you explain it to folks? Like, I don't quite know that much about it, and maybe folks might not know that much about what pain reprocessing therapy. I mean, just in a nutshell, like
yeah, in a
what is kind
nutshell,
of the
it's a modality that I'm in a class with a bunch of healthcare providers, health coaches like me, uh, psychologists, or physios, I'm sorry, physical therapists, even physicians of different kinds are all in there. So based on the scopes of our practice, then we can help people with these skills we learn, where we help the brain kind of rewire. Because what happens, like we're talking about today, our brain is so wired to see a lot of things as being like dangerous, and our body interprets that danger then in a variety of ways, including increased pain, increased anxiety, maybe increased depression. And so these skills that we're trained in, it would be hard to obviously go through the whole thing.
right?
But
But it's kind
it,
of changing how you're trying to change how one's um, kind of thinking about the pain. Is that a fair way to kind of say it? Or
well, it's not even just the thinking about the pain. It's what actually you just said a few moments ago, that you're safe. It is teaching the body. The work that we would do is teaching the body and the brain that you are safe. It's not even necessarily that you're thinking a different way, because again, this pain that you're feeling or this fear that you're feeling is 100% real. Like it is there. But what we want to do is, humans way back when, all of this danger signal that we have in our body was first created like when tigers used to chase us, and our fight or flight system would kick in
right,
so we could run
right,
away from the tiger or battle. And what we find now is that our fight or flight kicks in for, like we're talking about today, something you see on the news, or
right.
this
Or somebody
situation you had on
struggling
the
with bus
bus.
change.
Yeah, like, and our body starts to think that, oh man, this is as dangerous as, say, the tiger. Like, it's
Mm.
physiologically processing it that
Yep,
way. So,
yep.
pain reprocessing therapy helps people process it in a new way, which creates more safety in the body and brings all of this down.
Very cool. Maybe in
Yeah,
future episodes you can teach us some
yeah,
of those things.
absolutely. And again, it's something that I'm going to be doing with my coaching clients. So,
Awesome.
you can learn more about that in our show notes too. So yeah, I love what you said about the focus in on what you can control, though. That was kind of the end point there. And before we go into my little demonstration around the grounding exercise, because I think we wanted to end there, I want to make sure, did we hit all the points that you wanted to share?
Well, did we get, were there six? What was the sixth point? Did I miss it?
That was the focus on what you can control. Yeah, we've
Okay, good.
already, yeah,
Okay.
yep,
All right.
yep.
We did six. No, I think the only thing I would say would just kind of be to reiterate that one way to think about it is our nervous system in fibromyalgia is hypersensitive. And we want to, as much as possible, we will feel better physically and mentally the more we can kind of calm down the hypersensitivity. One way to do that is by activating the relaxation response. And I think in the current extra stressful times, we have to maybe dig a little deeper. And, we're trying to figure out new and different ways to care for ourselves, but sometimes it's just the basic, simple stuff. So I think about it like, how would you soothe a 2 or 3 year old? Like, think about your nervous system as like a toddler that's freaking out. Like you'd come to the toddler and you say soothing words like "you're okay" or "what's going on" or "I love you," or you would maybe use like distraction, like "hey, do you want to look over there? There's a picture of a horse," or "let's read that story about dinosaurs." Um, we'd kind of do some like soothing routines or repetition. What about a hot bath? Or what about things that to your body feel calming? And it's not like intellectually so much what we're trying to do. It's really how we're trying to like communicate to our our nervous system through our body. And I bet
That
that
we are
that's
safe.
part of what reprocessing
It is.
therapy is going to be all about. So, yeah, even just something really simple like I am safe or I love myself or I can take care of myself or and whatever personally you find soothing as a mantra, it's going to be different for everybody. Or kind of, and I mean, maybe it's just sounds a little bit crazy, but when I think about my nervous system as like an external, like a toddler. Like it's helpful for me to be like, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to be able to reason with a toddler, and my central nervous
Right.
system is not going to listen to like, no, you're okay, but like a hot bath or reading a story or learning a new thing or drawing or music or coloring or playing with a friend, you know. So basically, how would you care for your 2 or 3 year old?
And it's funny you said that because when you're, I love what you talk about the rationalizing, because I think that's a big part of the pain reprocessing therapy is we know we can't rationalize with that part of the brain. It's teaching it to be safe again.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. So teach us, speaking of teaching us to feel safe again, what about a grounding exercise?
Okay, so I'm gonna have everybody get comfortable in your chair. I need to shift around a little bit, get shifty to make sure you really feel comfortable. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I'm not as comfortable as I thought I could be. So, and if you feel, safe, why don't you close your eyes? You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable doing that, just kind of keep them like maybe relaxed and open. And just take a couple of breaths in. Doesn't have to be any kind of specific breathing, but just kind of breathe in and out. And pay attention to your breath, just real, like not intensely, not like you're cramming for an exam, more like you're just like if you're outside and you're watching like nice puffy clouds go by, like pay attention with that kind of intensity. Just see what you feel in your body. And maybe put your hand on your chest. There's science showing that when we put hand on our chest, our body actually internalizes it like it would a hug. So there's also some extra benefits to
Like
trying
over
that.
our heart, kind of?
Yep, over our
Okay.
heart. And see if how that feels. And just again, notice if you can kind of pay attention to either, some people don't like paying attention to their breathing. If you do, keep just paying attention to your breathing. You don't need to change it in any way. Just allow it to be. And if you're having a hard time paying attention to your breathing, maybe focus in on how your feet feel on the floor or how your bottom feels on the chair. And just breathe in and out. Take a couple of more breaths. And I'm going to ask you to think about something that made you smile or something that made you happy in the last week. Try to picture what that moment was. Think about what happened. Maybe if you're with somebody, who were you with? How did you feel in that moment? If it, brings to mind maybe a color, think about a color, if that feels right. Just realize right now that you are thinking about this happy moment and that you're safe right now in this moment. Let's take 2 deep breaths and then just take a minute to kind of open your eyes or open your eyes wider and come back to this moment. And there are so many really great guided exercises on many free apps, including like Insight Timers, the one I highly recommend just because it's one of my personal faves. So you can check that out. Like if you liked this idea. There's free stuff on YouTube, other things on YouTube here. So plenty of ways to check out a variety of things, if breathing's your thing or it's not your thing. Or if you don't know what your thing is, I really encourage you to play around because you might be surprised. For example, you may think breathing is not your thing, but then you hear a different person do it a different way, and then that way does help you. So I just always recommend staying very open-minded to things that might work. And as always, look for that way of getting 1% better. Like I always say, if you've been with us a while, you know that's what I say. So if it helps you even 1%, it's worth keeping and adding into your regimen.
And that was a lovely exercise. Thank you for guiding us through that. So maybe sum up what those six things are again, just help people solidify what those six kind of ways that we can help our nervous system in times of stress.
I will do that. And just out of curiosity, did you have a happy moment that you thought of that you
I
want to share?
did,
Yeah.
yes. So
Would
this weekend was my mom's 77th birthday, and we took
happy
her,
birthday to your
and we
mom.
took her to the Newport Aquarium. So there's this wonderful aquarium on the Oregon coast, and I remember seeing my mom's like happy face as she watched all the jellyfish, the jellies float around kind of in that weird magical way that they do. So that's what I was thinking of. What about
Oh,
you?
what a great memory. I was just actually thinking about chilling on the couch with my hubby, and we were watching Shrinking. I don't know if you've
Oh yeah.
seen that, but that's one of my faves if people are looking for something very funny. For those of us who do a lot of like therapy and psychotherapy, like I think you may find it extra funny. So,
And it has Harrison Ford in it, right?
has
So, I
Harrison
mean,
Ford. This new season that just came out this week has Michael J. Fox, who's like one of my heroes.
wow.
So super exciting.
All
Yes,
right.
very excited about the new season. But to review what we went through today. So, number one, set boundaries with the news. Number two, have phone free times or, device free times. Maybe even something I forgot to add. I moved one of my icons like to a much harder spot to click on it because I find I was doing it
Oh,
without even thinking.
that's
And
smart.
now I have to think about it a little bit harder.
So
Uh,
more mindful about going to that, accessing that.
yes. Three, give yourself permission to rest. And remember, we all have a prescription from Dr. Ginevra here to do that. So thank you for that. Number four, use a grounding exercise. Number five, talk with others. Connection is so powerful. And number six, focus in on what you can control.
I love that. That was wonderful. Thank you for guiding us through that. And I think, is there anything else you wanted to kind of say before we sum up and give our readers, our watchers some fibro love?
No, just know that we're thinking about all of you wherever you are in this country and around the world. Our hearts are with everybody during these really difficult times. And yeah, definitely check into if a fibromyalgia support group would help, check into that. If you're needing other supports, like do reach out and find supports and services that can help you. Now's not the time to power through it and go it alone. Like
Yeah.
definitely, find supports that can help. And until next time, I guess we are sending you all some fibro love.